Hey there, this is Karto 1989, and I'm doing something a little bit different this time, as since usually I talk about games, but recently there has been something that's been bugging me about a particular show. That show being RWBY. Now, before anybody gets angry, let me sort out a few things. One, I adore RWBY. It's definitely one of my favourite shows. Uh, I've been following it. I've basically been following Monty ever since Haloid, so I know what to expect. Two, I do class RWBY as anime, since anime is an art style and art can be done anywhere in the world. You close-minded fools. Ha. But three, in order to do this, I needed to get a bit of help. And that's why I've got ThatKaitoDan. Say hi.
Say hi.
So, yeah, I've got Dan here to help me look through Volume 1. Since, well, it was very clear that it was on a bit of a tight budget, so they had to cut corners.
Oh,
But since,
definitely.
yeah, but since the series has definitely become one of Rooster biggest shows, it seems as if a remake of Volume 1 could work. It could be possible. So, basically, today, RWBY Volume 1, you can do better, and here's how. So, right, so, Kaito, do you want to get your thoughts out of the way first? Like, what do you think of RWBY Volume 1 right now, as it currently stands?
Well, I'm thankful for this because when I first started doing my reviews, I jumped in Volume 2. I had seen Volume 1, but I didn't make videos until Volume 2, so I've never really had a chance to express my feelings on Volume 1 as a whole. And to this point, I do think it was a very solid volume, though obviously not without a few holes in its parts.
Yeah.
Though, as you said, obviously for fair reason, like the budget and this being a completely fresh new project for Rooster Teeth, because of course they are infamous, well, not so much infamous, famous, I should say, for stuff like Red versus Blue and all their other like comedy shorts and that. But this is obviously something completely different, and it definitely shows in some areas, like obviously the animation that had to be grown into it over time, and
Yeah.
the voice acting and all kinds of various stuff like that. And in the end, I do think it was a very stable, like a very good foundation point, though obviously future volumes would expand and do far better in some various areas.
Yeah. So, I mean, with me, it's like the biggest problem I had with Volume 1, in terms of the story, it's like animation, obviously, I can understand why the problems were there. But um, I got fairly annoyed so many times at uh, how some characters got a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that.
Yeah. It's like you'd feel like, okay, they've just sorted this issue out, then all of a sudden they're back to square one. It's like, really?
And I felt there was also some, I guess the term is like character disconnect at points, like with Blake, who was probably one of the characters who had the best development throughout the volume. But I felt there was some times where maybe where the humor was brought in for her was a bit janky at points.
Ah, so,
Two moments that spring to mind were the bonsai bit where there's Team Ruby are sorting out their bedroom and Blake joins in with the bonsai, which was funny, but it felt a bit odd for someone who was so stoic and secluded. And the same thing for when she's waving that little ruby flag during one of Port's lessons.
even though we're jumping ahead because my bit is, I'm not going to be discussing my points till way later. Those two are two things which I addressed.
Yeah, great
Because
minds.
they really bugged me.
I mean, they were funny, and obviously it's a very cute moment, and it's nice that Blake, obviously knowing the past that she had, that she was opening up like this, but still knowing what we had seen beforehand and with the black trailer, it did feel a bit like, again, disconnected from what we knew about Blake at that point.
Yeah. So let's really get into this. So we'll address this like we're watching the series. So really from the beginning to end.
Right.
So what was really the first real issue you had with the series? What was the first point which really annoyed you, or at least was brought to your attention? And what would you really do to try and fix it if the series was to be remade?
I want to say I guess the elephant in the room in terms of the episodes as a whole, but like the first thing that really struck me was it's just sort of the stuff with Jaune getting a bit more focus than I would say Blake or Yang at the start. That was, I mean, I love Jaune a lot. He's probably one of my favorite characters. But imagine if you had never seen the color trailers.
Yeah.
You need to see like the four main girls as they are, like their character, a bit of their backstory, what are they like interacting with each other. And I think we got that at least from the start with RWBY, Weiss, and Blake. Yang, I felt, was pushed to the side.
She was just kind of there.
Yeah, she was the supportive character in the fact that other characters who are supporting needed to be pushed up into a main spotlight.
Yeah.
And while I think it works for Yang because she's a very supportive character, especially with obviously RWBY, but it was around like obviously towards nearer the Jaune's arc, pun intended, where things started to notice in my head where Yang really isn't getting a lot of time in the spotlight.
Yeah, and that is kind of one of the things. It's like, since a lot of people say watch the color trailers first.
Yes, and definitely you need to watch the color trailers, because not only are they really good by themselves, but they do have some elements that do play into the actual story.
Yeah. But it's a case of when you then go into Volume 1, you kind of realise that the four main girls of this series have very little focus on them in Volume 1. The attention tends to go more towards Jaune and Team Juniper.
And that is fair, because obviously bringing in the color trailers again, we didn't see any other main characters. It was just the RWBY girls. So obviously some attention did need to go on these guys because they are going to be key characters down the line. But again, if you haven't seen the color trailers, and if you're just diving this in from like the word of mouth of the show, you're not going to know much about like Blake or Yang until like later on in like volumes 2 and 3.
Yeah. And I do think that was probably one of the cost issues. It's like they didn't have enough time and money to really animate these additional scenes which fleshed out our main characters more. They had to introduce the newer ones.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that's definitely one of the main issues. So what would you really do to try and fix that? If you were in charge of the RWBY Volume 1 remake, what would you do to address that?
Obviously, I gotta start with the big kicker. Work on the episode lengths. Because that really did hurt things. Not just in terms of, obviously, we had very short episodes to go on sometimes, but I think because of how the volumes episodes were paced, sometimes we had arcs or events that expanded too far, and it did kind of eat up some screen time. 2 moments I think of right from that is obviously the Jaune arc probably could have been cut down, but I would also have said the initiation could have been cut down as well to like 2 episodes, because we had some bickering with Weiss and RWBY that obviously built onto what would be their developing relationship. but we had a bit too much on it when we could have flowed things a bit smoother, and that would have offered up more time for other key events, other focus on other characters.
I definitely agree with that, because when I was rewatching the series for to gather my notes, I was watching the movie edit, because really you can't watch it any other way once you've seen it in the movie edit.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
It's the same with RVB. Once you've seen the movie edit, you cannot go back to individual episodes. But I mean, watching it in that version, the pacing is improved than the individual episodes. But I do agree that there is still a lot of unneeded scenes, a lot of really janky transitions.
And to be fair, there is understandable way to having to show so much, because this is not just seeing all these interesting characters, we're seeing a completely fresh and interesting world that is obviously still some elements that we have seen in other shows, like, well, I would even say other properties like Harry Potter or Soul Eater, or recently, I would honestly say that the first volume of RWBY echoes a lot of what I've just recently watched from the first season of My Hero Academia. There's a lot of introduction of characters, an introduction of this interesting world and its dynamics. It just sets up a lot of things, though, and I think we had to understand that in the end, that we weren't just seeing these new characters, but we were also seeing this new world, and that did end up being a caveat as well of the episode length being a bit too short.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, thankfully, they fixed that for volume 2.
Oh yeah, definitely. No more less than 10-minute episodes. That was a nightmare. Just under whatever was in the episode itself. The fact that we had to wait a week and then ended up getting like a 6-minute episode.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like one of the episodes only like 4 minutes, and that was like during the forest sequence.
Yeah.
So wait a whole week and you just get 4 minutes. It's like, really?
And obviously, you can talk about the budget issues, the time restraints, and all that stuff. And of course, this fact it was still a brand new project that they were trying to get the grips with. But if you understand that you are going to have these episode lengths happen, I think what the show needed was the writing to be better adapted for that episode length.
Yeah. Well, I think that was definitely more because it was something new for Rooster Teeth, and they were so used to doing those short videos for RVB. So they were so used to that, they thought, well, we could probably do the same for RWBY.
And of course, RVB is more oriented to comedy shorts.
Yeah. So you can get away with that for comedy, but when you're trying to tell an actual ongoing story, we need a lot of detail.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, so really you'd want to add additional scenes to try and flesh things out and balance things out more. So have you any idea what scenes you'd kind of want to add? Like where would you try and fit these in?
Can we find out who Yang's friends were that she left RWBY at the start?
Oh God, yes.
I remember watching that. I was like, we never did see Yang's friends after that moment. But seriously, I would honestly say, give us arcs that not only focus on characters that we are needing to see, like not just RWBY, but Team Juniper, and of course all the teachers and that, but make it stuff that is interesting and new. The Jaune arc stuff was fine in the end, but it was still a common trope bully arc. So
yeah, it was way too stereotypical.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that they incorporated a nice spin on it with the bully being an actual inspiration of the Cardin of Winchester.
Yeah,
that's actually a nice thought process behind it. But still, when you take that away, it's kind of a cookie cutter bully in this like, interesting world.
If you don't know who Cardin is referencing, then it's just a traditional bully arc, and it's so bland and uninspired.
I think what we could have got, at least in that situation, is obviously it's focusing on Jaune trying to understand that he's trying to live up to this lofty standard that he's got because of his family and his history and the fact that he snuck into Beacon.
Yeah.
Could we have just seen that in how he performed in the actual school lessons? And that would have helped us not only see more of the teachers and some other students, even just reacting to stuff going on, but it could have also explored new areas, like more on how huntsmen's fight, or how they gain their weapons, or aura, or semblances, that kind of stuff. Especially since we wouldn't get World of Remnant episodes until Volume 2.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good... does seem like a good angle.
I mean, you could still have Karto in there as an antagonist, because obviously you're going to get some characters who aren't that good-natured, but it could have been a bit more interesting, or at least it could have been a bit more key in development than just being something that I've seen in token Power Rangers episodes.
Yeah. So maybe having Karto more as a rival rather than a flat-out bully.
Yeah, that definitely works in that favor, I would say.
All right, so is there anything else?
I would say that there's also kind of the element of working into all these cliches that you see in like the school setting or just even anime settings, but again, it's that new dynamic for Rooster Teeth, and obviously a lot of the guys behind RWBY are big anime fans. Just look at the fan service podcast where they're just gawking at anime. And obviously those kind of cliches were thinned out as the show went along.
Yeah.
I think in the end I would just say that there could have been a bit better balancing of showing off this new world, but also feeding in the overarching plot. Because we had obviously the stuff with Cinder, this first episode where she's hidden away, and we get this vibe that there's something going on in the shadows, but we don't see that until the very end at the stinger behind the credits, where I've seen most people skip at.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with Roman really is the case of, you see Roman in episode 1 at the start, then he doesn't appear again until after they've formed Team RWBY, and then you don't see him again until the finale.
And there is still a good dynamic of, okay, is Roman the main bad guy? Or no, wait, it's this mysterious woman. Or wait, no, she's got allies, so she must be the main villain. Yeah. We'll talk about that in the later volumes.
Yeah, because I mean, I can still remember like everything when Volume 1 was still being shown. Everybody thought Roman was really the main bad guy, and that Cinder was more his lackey.
Yeah. No, so, definitely in that aspect, yeah. I think in terms of other things that I would have worked on, I don't want to be that kind of guy, but some of the casual animations needed to rise up to... It's hard to say rise up to Monty's standard, because the guy was fantastic with battle animations. Like, he's noted for that for a good reason, and he deserved all the credit he got. But some of the casual animations felt very stiff, and like all the limbs didn't really move as free-flowing as you'd expect.
Yeah, especially the arms. The arms and wrists were so bad.
And the mouth movements I'm fine with, because of course it's working with 3D models. You're going to have that weird jankiness, and that obviously would work out as the show went on. But it's just a lot more of that stuff where it needed to be thinned out. Maybe things could have just been tempered to work within trying to understand this system as we go along and not try and go too far. But again, I don't want to sound like a bit of an idiot for saying that, because I know the struggles they would have had to go through.
Yeah,
but
it is like, if the show was to be remade now, that would be addressed.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, we might not even have an imposer anymore.
Yeah, it probably would be in whatever they're using now. I always forget its name.
Maya.
And
and full credit for them doing what they've managed to do out of Poser, because from what I've heard, that is a bit of a difficult program to use, and compared to Maya, which is being used by even like mainstream media, it's a huge wave of difference. But obviously, at that start, you're not going to have that. You're still going to get used to all that stuff, and I still applaud what they did.
Definitely. So is that all your thoughts? Do you have any more?
I think I've covered my notes. Yeah, I'm good in there.
Right.
Your time?
My time. The list begins. Right, so I'm going to be looking at this in the sense of if they were to remake it, it would be done in Maya, and it would be only as the movie edit.
Mm-hmm.
So no individual episodes.
Right.
And I kind of feel like that because I feel like it would be better if they keep the original version as individual episodes for people to watch online.
Right.
But have this enhanced movie version for like DVD, Blu-ray, digital, stuff like that.
Kind of like a Brotherhood thing with Fullmetal Alchemist?
Kind of, yeah.
No, I see what you mean.
Yeah. But one of the really first things that I would actually address and is actually going back to the 4 colour trailers. Now, we did say that they are kind of necessary to see.
Yeah.
If you're going to watch RWBY, you have to watch those.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of people who skip them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's simply because they're called trailers.
Yes.
The
I think that's
the Comic-Con.
That's one of the benefits I think of the Volume 4 character shorts, because that feels a bit more in tune with what's going on.
That does work better, but for me, I would rename the 4 colour trailers to prologues.
Right.
Since the whole idea of the show is to be treated almost like this whole chronicle thing, like you're reading a massive book or anything. I just get the idea of calling like the red prologue, the white prologue, black prologue, yellow prologue. It makes just that one word change shows their importance a bit more. Because if you just call them a trailer, people do just think it's going to be just random clips from the series.
Yeah.
But by calling them something a bit more important, like prologue or something like that, it shows that, maybe there is something in there that's worth seeing. It better introduces the characters.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think, obviously, the trailer aspect worked for what it was going for, but if you want to chain these videos or these events into the main narrative, for those who aren't going to be aware initially, prologue would sound like the smoothest aspect.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, when they were first coming out, trailer did kind of work better because it was building up to the first episode. But now, not so much. I think since they're all out and they're fairly old now, calling them prologues focuses their attention. It just makes them more important for people who are going to check the series out.
Or you could, honestly, I mean, some of the things might need to be a bit thinned out for obviously later use in like later volumes, but you could easily just rework these scenes into the actual narrative itself. Like just add them into the story structure, like even at the start before we lead into the first episode's events.
I'm not too sure about that. I mean, because I do kind of feel like it is a bit weird because it's like if you treat the 4 colour trailers as kind of like the first few episodes of Soul Eater, where
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, those first 3 episodes of the anime, at least I haven't actually had a chance to read the manga, but the first 3 episodes of Soul Eater are each focused on a pair of characters
with their own story structure and their different locations and all that.
Yeah, so they don't really add much to the whole ongoing narrative. They're just focusing on introducing particular characters. And while I definitely do get the same feeling from the 4 colour trailers, I don't think they would work as like the first few episodes or the opening to, like I said, if it was just to be a movie edit.
What about like I guess like sort of flashbacks or callbacks perhaps, like uh, we like the first time Yang goes back to the club since the trailer, we could have Junior reference it, and then we see events from that
I
transpire.
I I don't think that would work because it kind of takes away from when you see Yang return to the bar in Volume 2.
Then again, that wasn't really a scene that offered much in the end, though.
Yeah, it was nice to see, but yeah,
True.
but yeah, I do kind of feel like they work they work better as prologues and they work better still kept individual away from the main opening. It's like if you began with the events of the Red trailer rather than that opening description of the world and its transition into the shop. It's like I don't think it would flow as as naturally as it should.
No, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think they need to be renamed to prologues. But other than that, I think keep them as they are.
Mm.
But going into the events of the first episode, really, almost right away, they tell you what the currency of this world is. The lien.
Yeah.
Then, just about a minute later, when Ruby kicks the grunts' asses, I'm just calling him grunts. What does Roman say? You were worth every cent.
Oh, yeah.
How does Roman know what a cent is?
I guess cent could be like how it's used for Lien. I don't know. We've not really had Lien really given a good insight. Just it's money. Here it is.
Yeah, it's like right. All we know right now is that Lien is their currency. But what does that mean? Is there an equivalent to cent or pennies? Because I mean that's what it seems like by saying that, but you've never addressed it because Roman saying that it's just a phrase. He could very easily said you were worth every lien.
I guess we kind of just. I think they might have just said that. Just it's a cent. We know what a cent means. We're still learning about this world. We might not know initially what lien might mean.
Yeah.
But no, I see what you mean.
Yeah, but it's the case of when he talks to the shopkeeper just says, take my lien and leave, and Roman does reply with, we're not here for your money. So we instantly know that lien is money.
Right.
So that's what I mean. It's like, it's a small detail, but it's something that when you rewatch it and you notice it, you can't help but wonder. I was like, if they have this their own currency, why then use a common word that we use like cent?
I think that might have just been like maybe something just put there in passing for the script.
Yeah, but it's like if the series wants to be reworked, then maybe they could just change that because it doesn't make any sense otherwise. And another little thing in that scene which I only really noticed when I was rewatching it. It's just kind of I was just like, why did they do that? Again, Roman says to the grunts, grab the dust, and they just instantly go fill up the canisters and take all the dust. So why does that one grunt ask for a particular dust crystal? He says, he says to the shopkeeper, crystals. So he's about to grab them and he goes, burn uncut. Ask for a particular one.
Now.
It's like, why did he ask for a particular one if they're there for all the dust?
I guess
they're there to clean everything out.
I think there might have been another thing where they just wanted to mention, like, this is how some dust are referred to, like, by its element, and you can either have it powdered or dust, because we saw that you can get them from the tube, so that obviously means you can get them in distilled forms like that. You got the crystals, so maybe that's just, like, another thing to just show how this thing could be like gained.
Yeah, but again, it's like with the way they were phrasing everything, like they said grab the dust, and it seems like they're going for everything. So you could kind of establish that if they go for the crystals as well, those are also dust,
Mm.
and they are in a dust shop. So yeah, it's like I say, it's a very small detail, but the more you think about it, the more you start to question like why did they do that?
Mm.
It didn't feel natural. That's what I was kind of getting at. It doesn't feel. It feels like they're speaking like the shopkeeper's an idiot. He doesn't know what they're there for.
He's not an idiot. He owns every single shop in Vale.
I don't. Getting off topic a little bit. Just about the shopkeeper. What do you think he's called?
Showkeep.
I'm a fan of the theory that his name is Jack, as in Jack of all trades.
Oh, that is brilliant! I love that.
I've seen a bunch of people calling him that, and I was like, I accept that. I will refer to him as Jack.
That's a bit more. It's a bit more interesting than Showkeep.
Yeah, I like it. I just like him being the Jack of all trades.
Oh, brilliant! I like it.
But yeah, getting back into it. Another little bit is it's not too much of a big deal really, but once you've seen the other volumes, you start then questioning it. It's again, a lot of these are things that when you see later volumes, you go back to volume 1, you're like, why did they do that?
Mm.
And it's why was Glinda out that night on patrol when she never does that again? Why that night?
Could have just been a case of she was in the area.
Maybe, yeah, but
I don't know. I mean,
that is a very minor detail, so it's not the most important one to address. But
we just needed someone, a professional, in there just to show this is the quality that RWBY wants to get to. This is someone she idolizes, and then of course it flows into getting into Beacon.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it does work, but it's like when you start thinking about why does Glinda never go on patrol again? If she's an instructor, why is she there? But yeah, it could just be like she was doing her shopping, but maybe have just one little tiny shot of just Glinda walking by and just noticing what was going on up on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to fully show her. You could just have her like slightly in shadow. Then she makes her heroic entrance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just better establishes where on earth what Glinda was doing, what she was seeing, and stuff like that. Makes it flow better. Again, another minor detail. On the news report, if they knew Roman did the robbery, why was there no mention of RWBY or Glinda?
I mean, I could suppose they just think like this is just a normal huntsman trying to stop him down. It could even be just like someone on the books. The most important thing is we got Roman, or at least we got Roman's awareness of he's trying to get all this dust.
Yeah, but it is a case of just maybe just a tiny line of dialogue, just saying, even though Roman was driven off by huntsmen, so we know what happened, and they do acknowledge that he was, someone was fighting him. I know, again, very minor, but that's the kind of thing that I pick up on. Right. With the movie edit, as it currently stands, for Volume 1, why don't they use the intro?
I've seen that happen so many other times in other like animes and stuff. Like you want to introduce the events, then you get like the intros.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
But it is the case of like with Volume 2 and 3, when you watch the movie edits, they show the entire first episode, then they have the intro, then they go into the events of the rest of the series. But for Volume 1, they completely skip it. At no point when watching the movie edit does it say RWBY.
I'm trying to remember because when they were doing the tug screenings, I saw the Volume 1 version. I'm trying to remember if they showed off the intro during that. I think they did after, like in the YouTube release, after the events of Episode 1.
Yeah.
But that was the only time, obviously, because they didn't want to chop and change.
Yeah. I mean that's what I'm basically mean. It's like, if they did that for the movie edit, why didn't they do that for the physical release version? But if the series was to be remade, I would expect the intro to be there, because otherwise it's like, what the hell do you know what you're watching?
Yeah.
Again, it's like, so the series if the series was remade in Maya, I would replace the 2D Chibi RWBY with RWBY Chibi RWBY.
That could work.
Yeah.
I remember the 2D stuff back then was more akin to the Rooster Teeth animated stuff back then.
Yeah.
Which I think worked for that time. Yeah, I think if they had that might be a bit of a, I don't know, it might be a bit of a sharp change seeing the different kind of contrast in art style, but
I mean, they did that
would
in
be a
the
nice
original.
little,
It's like someone just walks past and all of a sudden there's a floating 2D RWBY there. It's like, what? But having a switch
it's that anime cliche.
Yeah, it's like for that little scene, it's like, I do understand why they had a Chibi RWBY there, but I just think if they remade it, having actual RWBY Chibi RWBY would just fit a bit better.
Though saying that, you made me think of something else. Obviously, if Volume 1 would get remade, or obviously in other sense to that way, background people would not be shadow people anymore.
Is
that another point?
I would actually say no to that.
Really?
I would say keep them as shadow people.
Because I would argue against that, because it kind of made it obvious, like, oh, that character's actually got a full model. We're obviously going to be focusing on them. The fact that the only non-key character model that wasn't a shadow person was those three guys that Yang looked at when they were sleeping in that one room. That's it.
Actually, you forget, White's butlers had full character models.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, again, that's just weird, because then you got non-key characters who have models, and obviously it's, again, another time constraint thing.
Yeah.
But if you go into the effort of remaking it anyway, and we've seen how the quality of the background characters have grown since then, even just like how Volume 2 was mostly just chop and change body parts, I still think you should really add in like proper background characters, because also it makes things a bit more dramatic when you see all these characters and you see this is a living, breathing world. Oh no, it's just seeing these different characters. It's like trying to find the anime character with the spiked up crazy hair against all the normal haired people.
I definitely understand that, and in any other circumstance, I would say yes. I would agree to that. But there are two little details which kind of make it feel like it would be better to keep them as shadow people.
Right.
The first is when Pyrrha is introduced.
that was one of the moments I was thinking, it's a bit weird seeing that.
Yeah, it's just a case of like Jaune walks away and all of a sudden Pyrrha's just standing there.
Where am I going to find a nice quirky girl? There she is.
Yeah, but it's the case that if everybody else there was full character models, she might blend in to the background, so she might stand out.
That instance, I would agree, that's a bit fair, because obviously it's the reveal.
Yeah, granted they could rework that to maybe it's like Jaune walks away and Pyrrha's just walking into the hall.
Or you could have like the background models who aren't important, like in more shadow, where Pyrrha's in a bit more light.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree the shadow people at that instance was key.
Yeah. But the other one is because by removing them, it kind of ruins the joke in RWBY Chibi.
I agree. That was probably one of my favorite skits, that one.
Yeah. So it's the case of if there wasn't any shadow people and you only saw this version of Volume 1,
you won't get that joke.
Yeah, you won't understand where that joke comes from. So that's why I kind of feel like it might be necessary to keep the shadow people in Volume 1.
I guess.
Like I said, if they hadn't made that joke in RWBY Chibi, I would have said replace the shadow people. But because they made that joke, I feel like you kind of need to keep them.
Though definitely, as the show went on, it was a welcome change.
Yeah. Now, getting into something you said.
Right.
Who were Yang's other friends, and why are they never mentioned again?
I know. I rewatched it as well last night. I was just thinking, holy crap, we never did see these guys again. And this is Yang, someone who's a bubbly, like, a girl who's got all this attention naturally drawn to her. Why have we never even seen her mention her friends again afterwards?
Yeah, and that is something that kind of bothers me about RWBY as a whole, especially during the first 3 volumes. Granted, it does kind of get a bit better once we know more characters, but to begin with, they establish that these characters have other friends and know other people, but we never see these other characters. We never see them interacting with people other than their teams, really.
It's very self-contained into the characters that we need just for these events, these stories. Like the fact that Velvet was just going to be a background character until the fan outcry of like, we like this character, build her up.
I'll be getting to Velvet later.
Oh god, I'm calling all the shots.
Yeah, but it is the case with Yang's other friends. I mean, they could just be random background characters who we just see Yang talking to in passing every now and then. But it is really also... Oh god, I forgot what I was going to say.
It's a strange note to forget, especially knowing how things would turn out for Beacon in the future, and we don't even get a mention of like, oh my god, are these guys okay? Yeah,
it is a case of Yang's friends could just pop up every now and then during the Beacon Act if volumes 2 and 3 were to get remade as well.
Or we could just see like Yang coming away from having some time with the friends, going into the events that matter.
Yeah. So it's just like if she's got other friends, we want to just see them interacting with her, even if they're not important and we never actually get to know them. Just seeing her with them every now and then.
Because it's kind of weird to have a main character have noted friends not being like even briefly explored or even just like seen in full detail.
Yeah. It's like, don't bring something up if you're not going to do anything with them.
When you make connections to a notable character, there has to be a purpose there other than just, oh, we need to remove Yang from this scene.
Yeah. So it's like, if like Volume 2, if that were to be remade, you could just have a quick little talk with her friends in the background as she's walking away from them. And then in Volume 3, they could be in the crowd. Or they could just be cheering the other teams on.
You could easily just take the friends out and just say like, oh, I need to check on making sure they get my Bumblebee bike in okay, or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the point, yeah.
Because that's something that will connect later on, and we know, ooh, Yang's got a bike, because then again, you won't know that if you didn't watch the Yellow trailer. And the fact that Yang's got a bike later on is a bit weird.
I mean, to be fair, we never actually see her bike
until Volume 2.
Yeah, we don't know where it's stored, if she even has it.
Which is a bit weird considering I think they're on a floating island.
Yeah. So you'd think that she would have
a garage.
Yeah. So, yeah, having either keep up with her friends at other points or just completely drop the whole other friends thing.
And work into something that's a bit more natural flowing to later events.
Yeah, use it as a way to establish something else, like
an item of notice.
Yeah. Yang dashing off, that you can do that for almost anything. Hell, she could easily have the bike with her. She's coming off the ship.
Yeah, you could just say
then,
I gotta go. I gotta make sure this thing's parked up.
Yeah, and she just rides off, and that causes Ruby to spin round. So yeah, there's plenty of other ways to get around that, and I think establishing her bike would actually be way better. Because it just acknowledges
that. Also helps Yang as well. Character, for those who don't see the trailer, you think, okay, Yang's cool. She's got a bike. I don't think anyone else has a bike, at least any kind of thing like that. And then when we see it, it's like, it's the bike.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say that. One thing I never really understood. I know it's a bit of it's because it's basically an anime trope. And we don't fully know how dust works and stuff like that. It is magic, basically. But how on earth did Ruby's sneeze ignite the dust?
It's a secret semblance.
I mean, she's not fucking Negi from Negima. She doesn't have these gusts of wind when she sneezes.
Oh god, that would have been a bit worse. But yeah, we don't know how sneezing works with dust.
Yeah, it again, it's a funny scene and everything, but it's like when the second you think about it, it's like, how on earth did the sneeze cause this dust to explode? And getting into the shadow people, I did actually write here, why do Weiss's butlers have full models?
I completely forgot about the butlers until you mentioned it, and the fact that we watched it, I caught them, but then I just caught on the fact that we saw the guys who Yang were ogling in the bedroom bit.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, that makes sense, because otherwise you have no idea why she's staring at them.
She's strangely into shadow people.
Yeah.
It's an interesting quirk, but hey, I'm not knocking it.
Yeah, it's like that bit makes sense, but Weiss's butlers, it's like, why? I'm hoping one of them's Cake Butler.
Sadly, I don't think any of them were Klein.
Yeah. Now this is basically an editing issue. But again, when watching the movie edit, this one bit really, really bugs me, because it shows just how rough the editing was in Volume 1. When Ruby and Jaune are talking, they say that they have no idea where they are. They end up getting lost. And it goes from that directly into them walking into the main hall.
Yeah, that's definitely one of those things that works as like a separate episode chain of events. Not really when you're trying to flow things through.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that cut to black, but then you could just kind of think like, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm treating it as a movie edit only. Because they could then really work on the transitions better.
And I think that was something that they did better overall.
Oh yeah, but the way I'd basically do that transition really is instead having it crossfade into the main hall, and having Ruby and Jaune saying, "Oh God, we finally found it," as they're running in. It just shows that time has passed, and they finally know where they're going.
Or you could have ended the episode with like an alarm bell ringing to say the ceremony's about to start, everyone get in here, and then they decide, oh crud, we're going to be late. Phew.
Yeah, but at the same time they said that they're lost and they don't know where they're going.
You could have chopped and changed that out as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to keep as much in as possible.
No, I understand.
So, yeah, that's why I just kind of feel like them saying, "Oh, we finally found it." It just feels a bit more natural, considering everything that we've seen up until that point. Now, a little bit would be when Weiss is doing that whole safety speech when she's handing Ruby the pamphlet.
Yeah.
I would try to extend that speech slightly.
Oh, right.
Because I do, while the speeding her dialogue up is funny, I feel like it's not sped up enough. It just feels like it's only just starting to speed up when she's finished. So I feel like maybe if they extend that speech a little bit longer so they can speed it up a bit more, so it feels like it is going on a bit, like it is one of those proper safety speeches.
Again, a complete tongue lashing for all that.
Yeah. So it does feel like the Weiss is trying to just tell Ruby off, basically saying, do this!
No, I see that.
Yeah, it is, again, minor detail, but I feel like it needed to be longer for the speeding up to work. Because it was just starting to become humorous when it ends.
Though saying that comedy is kind of objective sometimes anyway, so too short for you might have been too long for someone else.
Yeah, maybe. But like I said, just 1 or 2 extra lines so it could be sped up. That's all. And again, while we previously discussed who were Yang's other friends, who are Ruby's other friends?
Yeah, that was something I thought about as well. The fact that we've had both Ruby and Yang mention friends, we don't hear from them again. I mean, it's understandable because, of course, it goes into Ruby being completely out of her element again and being pushed up several years.
Yeah, but it is
again one of those things where you're making connections to the main character.
But it is the case of, again, it's like, don't establish something if you're not going to follow up on it. I mean, they could very easily follow up on this in later volumes, but the way I'm going to look at this is more, Ruby says that she's writing a letter to her old friends. Why does she never get a reply?
The post is bad.
Yeah, that's the way I'm going to look at this, and I do have a way to sneak this in.
Right.
But yeah, I do get the feeling that while they don't need to be seen, I do think that Ruby should get a reply from her friends. Just basically checking in, just making Ruby feel more secure.
And I can even applaud her for her success as well, because that helps her feel like, okay, I'm actually achieving something.
Yeah, and
especially when she was having that weak period where she was not feeling confident.
Yeah, and that's basically it. It's like getting a reply from her old friends at that point, saying, "Wow, we can't believe what you're doing. You know, keep doing what you're doing. I'm sure everything will work out." That would be all we really need. It's like you wouldn't even need to really address Ruby's other friends, probably until we finally maybe meet them in a later volume.
Right.
Because it's like after the fall of Beacon, it's like they could do anything. But I do think that because they established that Ruby went to Signal Academy, but they've never gone any further into that.
And it's also connected to aren't Crow and Tai Yang also teaching there?
Yeah. It's like that's all we really know, and it's like.
And it would have been cool to see what those kind of academies are like building up to the major ones.
Yeah. And that's kind of like where I know it's getting into later volumes, but I kind of feel like they dropped the ball, because they had this opportunity to have so many other people in the crowds in Volume 3.
No, I get you.
They could have easily had people from these from Signal and stuff like that just
cheering Ruby on, even for a small second.
Yeah. Just establishes better establishes the world and the connections and stuff like that.
Saying that though, we only had Ruby fight in that one fight in the tournament.
Yeah. But it is the case of they very easily could have still had them walking around and stuff like that.
True, yeah.
It's like we didn't even need to meet Ruby's friends in there. We could have very easily just seen other people from Signal Academy. But But yeah, I definitely do feel like Ruby getting a reply from her friends in Volume 1 would be better. It would at least...
It could have benefited some of the character arcs that she had to go
Yeah.
through.
It would fix that. And it was like, again, why establish something if you're not going to address it?
Especially relationships to the main characters.
Yeah. It's like, we need to know as much about these characters as can, even if it's
the
a small
slightest
detail.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, again, getting back to the editing, this was, again, another thing that I kind of noticed, and maybe you would disagree with this. It's a very subtle one, but when Blake blows out the candles after they have their little argument,
right,
the screen obviously goes to black.
Mm-hmm.
Almost instantly, we're then inside Ren's from seeing things from Ren's perspective.
Oh god, yeah, that would have happened.
Yeah. And I just kind of feel like the black screen in between those two scenes isn't actually long enough.
Right.
It goes almost instantly from Blake blowing out the candles to seeing Nora's face.
No, I think so, I can understand what you mean there, especially in the full run narrative.
Yeah.
It could have been edited a bit stronger.
Yeah, so I just feel like maybe 1 or 2 extra seconds of black screen there.
Or maybe,
just to let
you could have even had like
pajama scene end.
Or you could have had like a scene of like the sun rising showing it's the next day.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But again, just for me, I feel like to keep as much in as possible without really ruining it, 1 or 2 seconds of black screen, just to let the pajama scene end.
Yeah.
Let you acknowledge everything that happened.
Yeah, flows natural.
Yeah. But then, going into Ren and Nora waking up, something that I noticed, did Ren and Nora sleep in their regular outfits that night while everybody else was in their pajamas?
I don't know, because in Volume 4 they slept in their full attire in the sleeping bags.
Yeah, but at least there they can kind of get away with it because they're on that long journey.
Yeah.
But they're in the school that everybody else is in their pajamas. So just for that one little bit, why aren't Ren and Nora in their pajamas?
Could have been just an ease of animation, because of course it was chopping from like we're in the bedroom, getting sorted and all that.
Yeah, I know it would only be for like a few seconds. So in terms of production and everything, I can understand why they did it, because obviously it saves money rather than creating whole character models just for one scene.
And we don't even see them in pajamas until Volume 2.
Yeah. But that is the case of now we know what their pajamas would be. So
the boob t-shirt.
If they were to remake Volume 1, they could easily just have Ren and Nora in their pajamas for that one little bit. And really, they could later reuse them again, because we do actually see what Team Juniper are doing in their dorm room. So they could easily be reused.
Yeah.
But it's just like, again, just a few seconds. When Ren and Nora are waking up, why are they in their regular outfits rather than pajamas like everybody else? Now, one thing I would absolutely want them to keep,
right?
If the series was to be remade, is Weiss's derp face. Sure, I'm guessing you know what I'm talking about.
Is that during her little monologue bit?
Yes. when for those who haven't noticed it, when Weiss is talking to Pyrrha and saying, that she wants to team up with her, and she has like a very evil monologue bit. When Jaune interrupts her, for a split second, Weiss's eyes go derpy.
It's one of those anime things I've seen as well, like, oh my god, you broke my concentration. What the hell's going on? But that was a good face for it.
It's such a weird bit because they never do that again.
Mm.
But I'd say if they had to remake it, they have to keep the dirt face.
Yes, agreed.
Um, Now, when we go to everybody being launched into the forest, um, well, firstly, where is Blake?
Yeah, we don't see Blake at all. We see Carden, but we don't
Yeah.
see Blake. Not even
Yeah.
like at the far end, or even like a shadow version of her.
Ah, but this goes into my next point, which I do kind of feel like can be very easily fixed, and maybe they're kind of alluding to this, but it's not really properly explained. But at the exact same time, Ozpin actually says that the instructors are watching them.
Hmm.
It's basically suggesting that it's more than Ozpin and Glinda watching them, that there are other instructors watching this initiation.
And they did have all those other camera angles.
Yeah.
Like when we saw on Ozpin Scroll at one point.
Yeah. Because in granted, we only ever see him and Glinda.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's obviously working into the fact that we would later see who Port and Ozpin are.
Yeah.
In their respective bits.
But, like they say that other instructors are watching them, making me think that the others are just watching like Ozpin and Glinda are. And this also makes me think that are other students being launched into the forest from different locations.
Possibly, we never see any.
Yeah. So, is that where Blake is? Is she with like the other members of Team Cardinal and all these other teams that are being launched by other instructors?
Maybe, because we don't see Blake until she's later in the forest with Yang.
Yeah. So I think that if the series were to be remade, we'd just like even just a single line of dialogue saying that other students are being launched from other locations.
Mm-hmm.
That would just mean that they can cover up the fact that that's why Blake isn't there. She's coming in from another location.
Yeah.
And it means that they could probably remove the shadow people from that scene and just have like Cardinal, Juniper, and the rest of Team RWBY being launched.
Mm. And that also like highlights that okay, these guys, these are important, or at least important for now.
Yeah.
Even if we don't see like Cardinal at all until after the initiation.
Yeah. But it's just like it just gives the idea that it is just a random assortment of students are being launched from this location, same with the others.
And we don't know who's going to end up with who, even though I guess with the opening we kind of get that spoiled.
Yeah. Now, again, another transition fail is when the Grim roars at Weiss. You know, it emerges from the bushes and just roars at her when she's on her own.
Mm-hmm.
It cuts to black. And then it goes back into the forest with Yang walking by. That is such a bad transition. It doesn't flow. It doesn't flow naturally at all.
It's getting one of those instances again where it works for the episode as a singular, but not as a collective.
Yeah. So instead, I would have it basically be as the Grim is roaring, the camera would quickly pan up into the sky. That allows it to transition to like a different part of the sky, and then the camera pans back down, and we're clearly in a different part of the forest with Yang walking by.
Mm.
It just gives the idea that it just makes it feel a bit more
flowing.
Okay, yeah, a bit more natural. But also a bit more dramatic because we don't know what's going on with Weiss. It's like, oh god, another Grims are attacking her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just feel like that would work better than cutting to black.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something that's really bugged me about the forest sequence is how the hell did Ruby and Weiss get on the Nevermore?
I was thinking that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those nice reveals because, of course, we had the show of the feather, and then next time we see it is on the actual Nevermore itself.
But actually, we don't. You forget there is a scene where Weiss and Ruby are just arguing. Because it's the case of we go from seeing that feather, then it cuts to, then we get another scene. I can't remember which. Then it goes to Glinda and Ozpin talking, which then transitions again to Ruby and Weiss arguing with one another. Because that's where Ruby basically says, "You don't even know me."
Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that. I thought the feather bit was the last scene.
Yeah. So we have this whole scene where the two are arguing, and then it cuts to them on the Nevermore. It's like, where the hell did that come from? So I would kind of feel like, more than anything, blend the scene of them running away from the Grim and that little argument bit where they do really fall out. Blend those two bits together, because otherwise that little bit on its own, that little argument bit, doesn't work. It breaks the flow of what they're doing. So blend those two together, but have Ruby still say, "You don't even know me," but as she's walking off, she gets annoyed and cuts the tree down. So then the Nevermore feather comes down, which Ruby then notices, has a quick look up, and then then just grins. So then grabs Weiss, saying, and runs off saying she has an idea. That basically just gives the idea. It shows that she's noticed this feather. We don't imagine you don't know what the Nevermore is.
No.
So she just sees this feather, and you know that she's got this idea regarding where this feather's come from. She has an idea. What is this leading to? And then obviously next time we see them, they're on the Nevermore.
Yeah.
They're riding it. So we know that they've basically gone to where this Nevermore is and hitched a lift. It just, again, it makes it flow better. We know that that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
In the time that they were gone from the screen, they were off finding this Nevermore. So that the next time we see them and they're riding the Nevermore, it feels like, oh, so that's what she was planning. Because again, when we do catch up with them on the Nevermore, Weiss just say, "I told you this was a bad idea."
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah, so having Ruby says she has an idea, again, it flows a bit better.
And it gives a bit more conflict.
Yeah, and I do kind of like the idea of, because I just kind of noticed this, with Ruby saying she has an idea, that's a common thing. Because if she says that she has if she says this bit, she does it for this bit and says she has an idea, and Weiss doesn't like it.
And then later on, when they're fighting the Nevermore at the end, she says it, but Weiss agrees.
Yeah, she says it again, and Weiss during that bit, Weiss could easily say, "Hope it's better than your last one."
But
obviously it does.
But there's a bit more trust in there. She agrees with it. Yeah.
But then it also transitions again to the end of Volume 3, where Ruby does say, "I have an idea," and Weiss says, "You always do."
Yeah. That's a good connection.
Yeah. So I just feel like it's basically the rule of 3.
The first one it didn't work. The second one, you see it start to help the bond. 3, it shows how strong the bond is.
Yeah. It's a callback all the way to Volume 1, but it doesn't work unless we do have have her say it at least one more time, which I think this first one would be.
The first one that fails.
Yeah. Just having her say, I have an idea, grabbing Weiss and dragging her into this. It sets it up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, this is another one of those cases where it works as an individual episode, doesn't work as a movie. Is those few seconds where Ruby comes flying in, saying "heads up," only for it to then cut to black, and then her seeing, then it cuts to her doing it again.
It's one of those cliffhanger bits again, episode to the full narrative.
Yeah, it's like that works for individual episodes, doesn't work as an edit. It doesn't work as a movie edit, so they could easily redo that bit so that it flows a bit more naturally. One bit which I feel like they could possibly tighten up really more than anything is when everybody just comes zooming in, like dragging all the brim and stuff like that to them, and Yang's getting more and more annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that bit's done as well as it could be.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean,
yeah, because Yang just erupts with rage, and it feels like that isn't as warranted.
Yeah, it seems a bit too dramatic for what is basically, oh, we're seeing monsters. We expected to see monsters. It's a funny moment, but it kind of does make it feel like Yang's just got a really short fuse.
Yeah, I mean, granted, she kind of does.
Yeah,
but it just didn't feel.
It didn't weigh up.
Yeah, it didn't feel quite warranted there.
Mm.
If anything, it should be the case of she looks more and more shocked as all this weird stuff's getting in.
Mm.
And then maybe like she just, rather than having like a rage outburst, she just like ruffles her head, just like, oh, will people stop doing this? Just stuff like that. Because her getting really angry and just getting instantly red eyes just feels...
It doesn't weigh up to what we would later see as reasons for her to snap.
Yeah. Again, it's like if it was tightened up a bit, like maybe make it a bit more crazy, then maybe, yeah, I could see it.
Mm.
But as it currently stands, not so much.
Mm.
Also, I didn't write this down, but it was just to getting into the technical groups. I mean, granted, I know these would be fixed anyway.
Mm.
But I noticed so many times where footage had to be either sped up or froze or looped.
Yeah, especially in like some of the running stuff.
Yeah, it's like because there's one bit which I always noticed. This was because this was when it happened. And it happens throughout the volume, but this was the first time I really noticed it. Is when Pyrrha's comes flying in. Like she lands in front of everyone, and that's when Yang says, great, the gang's all here, we can die together.
Mm-hmm.
In that shot, just before Pyrrha comes flying into view, and everybody's just standing there, you can very clearly see that they've just looped the animation. Especially on Ren, because you see him just move to the side, and then he instantly cuts to where he was to begin with, and then he slides back. So it's very clear like they didn't have... There's just a few frames where they've just looped it. You notice it and it's like, why did they do that? Tech goof. But yeah, it's like there's so many times where like frames just freeze for a few seconds.
Some of the motions don't really add up to what's going on, which again, it's fair, it's still rough, it's still early days.
Yeah, again, tech goofs, they'll be sorted out anyway.
Yeah.
Even though I did like how they did fix a few for the move, like the physical releases and stuff like that.
And that happens with like most stuff these days.
Yeah. But there are still loads which they didn't address, like uh, when they're collecting sap. What the hell is wrong with Ren's hand? Everybody noticed that when it was first released, but they never fixed it. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it's just like a little bit. But yeah, the rest of that episode, that entire fight scene is superb.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the the first selling points of okay, this is something special.
Yeah.
And yeah, can't argue with that.
Yeah. And it's like I will just say, that fight is the fight which I hold all of the fight scenes to.
It did kind of hold the marker for a lot of them.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of the humans versus the monsters.
Yeah. And it is kind of why I got a bit annoyed at the fighting animations in Volume 4.
I understand that.
Yeah. It again, off topic a bit, but I wasn't really too fun. I wasn't too fond of the floatiness in Volume 4.
Yeah, I said that in my my full review that some of the weight is a bit missing.
Yeah. And that's why I loved that fight scene in Volume 1, because it does feel so weighted.
And I think that also comes in the fact that they're new into Maya. Hopefully it's something they work on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see why most people would fairly rank up that fight in Volume 1 as one of the landmark ones, the measuring stick.
But yeah, so really my next point is, again, one which you brought up. Why does Blake take part in the banzai?
Again, it just feels a little bit disconnected from the Blake who didn't want to have any kind of conversation going on with Ruby and Yang beforehand. The same kind of Blake who just wants to be kept in her own world. Yeah, there's obviously a bond that's starting to form, but not enough to go banzai.
Yeah, it's basically that comes too soon.
Yeah, that and the Ruby flag. I think they could have. I think they could have easily swapped, Yang doing the Ruby flag.
Well, the way that I look at it is, still having Yang and Ruby do the banzai, but having Yang basically having Blake in a headlock, forcing her into it.
Or could begrudgingly do banzai.
I just get, still having Blake take part in it, but having Yang be the one who drags her into it.
Yeah, that could work.
I just feel like that would, because obviously it is meant to be the case of Ruby and Weiss are a pair, and Blake and Yang are a pair. I'm not talking about fanships, even though Bumblebee for life.
I'm keeping myself out of it just for the moment.
I do have my thoughts on Bumblebee, but in terms of the actual everything going on in the story, Blake and Yang are a bit of the pairing. So I just get the feeling of Yang dragging Blake into the banzai makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, could have worked a bit more, and you still get the comedy bit.
Yeah, you still get the comedy bit. You get plus you get a little extra because you can clearly see that Blake's not truly into it. Like, she's more into it than Weiss is, but she's not as into it as Ruby and Yang.
Yeah.
A little bit is when they're in the class and Weiss is getting repeatedly annoyed with what Ruby's doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the doodles, the balancing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One thing I really do have to call out is, why is she picking her nose? I just felt like, again, this is character issues. I feel like picking her nose is a little bit too immature for Ruby.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that just exasperates how Weiss is just seeing the childish Ruby, not the leader.
Yeah, but I just feel like they could have done something else rather than having her pick her nose.
Plus, it is a bit gross.
Yeah, it's a bit too, like I say, it's a bit too immature for Ruby. I know she is meant to be immature, but it's too much.
Yeah, the balancing, the making the jokes, is a bit more normal.
I'd much rather like instead having a just let out a huge sneeze.
So, a bit without an explosion.
Just whether or not she either just lets out a huge sneeze without covering her face. So basically germs everywhere.
And that's the final shot, ain't it? Like they close in on her picking her nose.
Yeah, they close in on her picking her nose. So instead they could have her like just going chew, stuff like that. But either that is either just lets out a huge sneeze, or she sneezes and then wipes her nose with her sleeve. Which is, it's still disgusting, but it's not as bad as picking her nose.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that.
Yeah. Again, a little tiny detail. Again, getting back into Blake, but I do agree that having her waving that little flag, it's like, why? It's too soon. You can have that after a revelation in Volume 2, but
this is
too soon.
This is still the Blake that we think is like the lone wolf, the grounded one, the serious one, not the one to wave a flag and saying fight on.
Yeah. So I'd much rather still saying I still want to have her be wanting to participate with her team. Like she's starting to get to know them, but she's still not truly opening up to them.
Still be positive, but still feel connected to Blake's attitude that we know of. Yeah,
it's like, so I'd much rather just have her focusing on her book. Like she's just there reading a book and she's going, go on, Weiss. Like she's not really paying much attention. I just feel like that would again be more fitting for Blake at that time.
Yeah.